I was married. Unfortunately, my wife had had some sort of bad experience in a previous relationship, which, as I figured out later, she'd kind of brought about herself. And her response to that was to drink large amounts of vodka at every opportunity. And when she did that, she got violent. I had this for about 2 years, and then we split up. Now, she, of course, told Patricia Myers, because she was working as an usherette at the theatre at the time, I was the violent person, which was complete nonsense. But, of course, Patricia Myers decided to believe that, even though she knew my wife drank a lot, was quite a serious boozer, as it were. She chose to believe what she was being told and decided to punish me for that and bully me and abuse me one way or another. So where I had been working 3 day shifts, that's from 8 until 6, 8 in the morning till 6 in the evening, and then 3 night shifts from 6:30 till the lock-up of the theatre, whenever that was. I reduced that to just the 3 nights. And I went to work where I'd worked before at Gardenia Restaurant in Rose Crescent, waitering there. The money was a bit better as well, because tips were quite good there. But on one particular time I was working there at the weekend, and, well, my manager, he got upset at these thugs going past who were trying to mess around with the waitress Sharon's moped, trying to start it. So he ran out shouting at them. I ran out after him to try and get him back into the restaurant, and we both got a very bad kicking from these 4 thugs. I had blood coming out of my ear, concussion and bruises all over me, and he'd got a couple of cracked ribs and a lot of very nasty bruising around his face, and kicked us in the face with their boots and all that kind of thing. So what had happened was a friend of mine had called round the next day, and I was still in a mess and very bruised up and what have you. And I was supposed to go to work at the theatre that night. I don't remember the next day or the day after. I was supposed to go to work at the theatre that night, which was a Monday night. And they said to me, my phone had been cut off because a tenant had run up a £300 bill and then gone off. Anyway, so she said, my friend said, when I get home, I'll phone the theatre for you. Tell them what's happened. And tell them you can't go in because you're still in a bad state from this attack. Well, I didn't know. I went in the next day, still very bruised up, and and I had a demand, go to see Miss Myers in her office. So I went up to her office. She could see all the bruises on me. I explained what had happened. Oh, you're sacked. This is 1983, just about a month before Christmas or so. Because she'd been working to this for a while, working on this theory that I was a violent person, when actually it was the wife who was very violent, not me. Anyway, she'd got what she'd wanted, but unfortunately for her, because when you then go and sign as unemployed, they say, oh, you lost your job through your own fault. You only get income support, not job seekers allowance, whatever it was called then, the dole, you know. So I said, well, that's not quite right. This is what happened. Oh, well, do you want an appeal against that? Yes, I do. So I appealed, and this came to a tribunal where Miss Myers turned up to put a case. And when the judge, or the tribunal chair, had a letter from my friend who had explained what had happened to her, coming around, finding me all bruised up and still in a state of some mild concussion or so, after this kick in the head and what have you. So the chairman decided, well, no, he was unfairly sacked, but he also asked her, had you ever warned Mr. Taylor before? And yes, she'd warned me for lateness. Oh, what was the date of that warning? And it was 18 months before. He said, well, are you aware, Miss Myers, that after 12 months you have to take a warning off file and destroy it? No, she wasn't aware of that. She went bright red and she got very, very angry. But he found in my favour. So the theatre re-employed me, reinstated me, deemed my employment as continuous, And they paid me £183, which was the difference between what my wages were and what I'd got from the dole, as it were. I didn't want to press any charge against the theatre because I realised entirely this was Myers and her attitude and her way. And so I didn't want to sue them or anything like that because I loved the theatre. I didn't want to do any harm to the theatre itself. And I think General Manager Blackwood actually understood that in the end. And apparently what he was doing then was going round to her office on Monday morning, and he'd open up the Guardian newspaper at Media and Marketing. In other words, find another job because you're losing this one. If you don't lose it soon by yourself, I'll help you. Because he'd crawled across cut glass to get her the job in the first place. And she was no use at all. The theatre was in trouble then, trying to raise funds through an appeal and one thing and another. And she was spending thousands of pounds doing these different things. A creche that didn't earn any money, this didn't earn any money, that didn't earn any money. It cost money and cost money and cost money. And I think by the end of it, the accountant told me she'd run up something like, I don't know, £15,000-20,000 in the 5 or 6 years she was there on various things that didn't earn any money at all. So she cost them money, she didn't earn any money for them. Nevertheless, she left the theatre and went to work for Cambridge City Council as the deputy head of amenities and recreation, then now called leisure. And of course, what did they do? They put her in charge of the LP project that Peter Ingham and I have produced.